I'm Jessica Liston with Earth Day Initiative, and I'm here with Tim Brown, the co-founder and CEO of Tradewater. Thanks so much for joining today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jessica.
Awesome. So to kick things off, why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about Tradewater? How did you get started?
Sure. So Tradewater is a mission-based company. We're headquartered in Chicago, Illinois, and in San Jose, Costa Rica. And we are all about identifying, collecting, controlling, and ultimately destroying high-potent greenhouse gases. A lot of what we focus on are old refrigerants, and these gases are considered non-CO2 gases, so they're not carbon dioxide, yet they really do contribute to climate change. They're one of the most potent greenhouse gases around. So we formed a company that is whose mission it is to go identify and then go collect these gases, make sure that they are ultimately destroyed and therefore permanently prevented from being released into the atmosphere. And this is one of the strategies that we use to help on preventing runaway climate change. Our work results in carbon offset credits. We end up selling those carbon offset credits, and that's how we fund the work. So there's a sort of an ongoing cycle of identification, collection, destruction. We end up with these carbon offset credits. As a result, we sell them, and then we do it all over again in the United States and increasingly around the world.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. So these non-CO2 gases that you're talking about, could you give us a couple of examples of what kind of things you're talking about there?
Sure.
I know a lot of people know a lot about like carbon dioxide and the kind of issues that come with that, but people maybe don't know as much about these non-CO2 gases and why they're so important to the prevention of the runaway climate change.
Sure. So some of the non-CO2 gases that you hear about would be considered like fluorinated gases, and sometimes you'll hear them referred to as F gases. An example would be old freon. So these would be gases like chlorofluorocarbons, old refrigerants that have been banned from production by the Montreal Protocol. However, their use was not banned. So even though these chemicals aren't being produced anymore, they're still widely used and distributed around the world. And what's amazing about them is how potent they are. So 1 pound of chlorofluorocarbon 12, R12 as we call it, is the same as 10,900 pounds of carbon dioxide.
Wow.
So it really packs a punch. And these are gases that are that cannot be removed from the atmosphere. So if you think about carbon dioxide, you can pull it out of the atmosphere. That's what trees do. So there's really strong, important land-based, nature-based solutions that pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and store it in the ground. But that's not possible with these synthetic man-made gases that are that once they're released into the atmosphere, they're there, and they accelerate climate change, and therefore it's really important to get those out of the atmosphere. In fact, even the most recent reports and some of the scientific studies would indicate that getting these gases out really helps in preventing runaway climate change, because they accelerate global warming, and getting them out now gives more time for the longer term carbon dioxide based solutions to take effect. So they really are important, and they're often overlooked. People don't really think about refrigerants as a major climate change gas, but really they are. And our company is really focused on doing our best to go find them wherever they are and make sure that they don't get released into the atmosphere. And when you think about the scale of this work, there's a recent study by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology that modeled the remaining refrigerants that are still out there. And with the chlorofluorocarbons alone, they estimate that there's about 9 billion metric tons of CO2 equivalent represented by those gases that are still in use and distributed around the world, even though their production has been banned.
Wow. Yeah, that's so interesting. That's kind of wild that there's so much still there. Do you have an idea of like how much has been like found and eliminated so far that was in production,
Hmm.
compared to how much there is still there?
Well, I can just tell you from our own experience that we've collected and destroyed about 5.3 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent from this work. And that represents probably about 1.3 million pounds of these refrigerants that we've collected and destroyed. There are other organizations and companies that are doing the same kind of thing. But I would say that given the importance of these gases and their broad distribution, really more needs to be done and to try to get this work up to scale. And our work, which started here in the United States, has escalated now so that we're doing it in other countries around the world. And we think that there's a real opportunity to continue to grow this work. Currently, we're doing about 1 million metric tons a year. We think we can get it up to 3 million metric tons a year if we continue to develop these identification and collection networks.
Yeah, wow, that's an awesome goal.
Mhm.
So whenever when you're going in and eliminating these, like the refrigerants and other compounds, what does that actually look like, or how does that work?
Well, often we find these gases in old cylinders. They could be 30-pound cylinders, or they could be 12-ounce cans or 14-ounce cans. They were often used by HVAC contractors to service old air conditioners or old chillers. They're also used in the automotive sector for air conditioning in cars. And amazingly, these cylinders, which were last produced in the United States in, say, the early 1990s, are still out there in unused quantities. So we have a network of people that try to find it by contacting people who are likely to have it, by making it known that we collect this material. And then we go and send people out to actually collect it, physically collect it. We then ship it back to a warehouse we have here in Chicago, where we consolidate it into really large ISO tanks that hold like 30,000 pounds of material. And then we send it off to a destruction facility. We use a rotary kiln incinerator to destroy these gases. And this is a technology that's approved by the United Nations through the Montreal Protocol as meeting a destruction efficiency of about 99.99%. So there is a real permanence and additionality to the work. But really, it's about looking around, putting the word out that we're trying to find it, and then setting up these collection networks that can gather it before it gets released into the atmosphere.
Yeah, wow, yeah, that's super interesting. So whenever you're destroying these gases, are you breaking them down into other materials, or how does that end up working?
Yeah, it's 99.99% destruction, and that's a breakdown of the gases. There are some carbon monoxide at the end that may be released, but we account for those gases in the carbon benefit that we create. So we follow protocols that have been established by the independent carbon offset registries, such as the American Carbon Registry and the Vera Registry. And they establish the rules for how these projects must be conducted. So we follow all of those rules, including the destruction and the destruction efficiency. Then we have our projects verified by third-party verification bodies, which then it's like getting an audit done to confirm that we did the project based on the rules. And then once that happens, a carbon credit is issued. So there's several different checks and balances along the way to make sure that the project is done and that there haven't been any environmental problems associated with it, or regulatory compliance problems or destruction problems, that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's great that that it all kind of gets verified like that. So I guess one last question before we wrap up. I know a lot of people would love to get involved. People always like kind of want to be part of the solution, but sometimes I don't know where to start. So is there a way that people can get involved with the work that Tradewater does?
Yes, we're always looking for old refrigerants. So if anybody has any in their garage or knows of companies that may have these old refrigerants, we're always on the hunt to try to find them. If you're a small to medium-sized enterprise and are looking to become carbon neutral, you can become carbon neutral by utilizing carbon credits from these kinds of projects. And that there's a program that we run called the Carbon Neutral Collective. You can find it on our website at tradewater.us that will enable you to take advantage of this project type to meet your climate commitments. Same thing with individuals or even large companies. We really do invite people to join us in this effort because it's hard to get after these old chemicals, and the more support that we can get through the sale of carbon offset credits, the better. For larger companies that may have a portfolio of buildings that they manage that have old air conditioning and chillers and technologies like this, we have a program called the Catalytic Coalition, where we're working with leading companies that want to do an inventory of the refrigerants that they have under management in order to really understand the greenhouse gases associated with that, so we can better manage it and create an end-of-life solution for these old potent gases. So those are the ways that people can help, is to support the work by offsetting their own carbon emissions with this project type, but also helping us to find these gases so that we can make sure that they do not get released into the atmosphere.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much for those kind of like really actionable steps. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for. So that's all the time that we have for today. So thanks so much for joining. It's been really great.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much. And thanks for putting on this event.
Yeah, of course.